All right, I think we're live.
Yay!
Yay! Hi, everyone. Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing our shelf space live show for the month of April. So know that it's May already. So we're doing it a little late, but that's okay. We're still here, and we are talking about The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington. And we are joined today by the wonderful Jade from Bedtime Bookworm. So I'm so excited that you are this month's guest host because I have so many questions for you. And I'm so curious. I don't think I know any of your thoughts really on this.
I don't know yours either, really.
Okay, I'm excited. So before we get started though, Jade, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself and your channel and then give us your top 3 favorite sci-fi, fantasy books or series, and then we'll start spoiler free and move into spoilers.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm Jade. My channel name is Bedtime Bookworm, and I read a variety of things on my channel. My channel is basically just like a diary of all the things that I read. I don't do a ton of tags. I want to do more of them, but I mostly just talk about the things that I'm reading. I read mostly sci-fi fantasy, but I do dabble in like thrillers and horror, and occasionally some historical fiction. Those are kind of like my favorite genres. And I do read a mix of YA and adult. I used to read more like 50-50, but I feel like lately I've been reading a lot more adult, but not because I don't like YA anymore. I just have been gravitating towards doing more like book clubs and stuff and things that are just more adult books. So you can find a mix of all of that stuff on my channel. My favorite, like my top favorite fantasy series is Wheel of Time. I know it's totally like cliche, but I grew up reading the series. I started it in high school. So there's definitely like a big nostalgia factor there. I've read parts of the series like multiple times, like the beginning half. And I finally finished the series back in like 2019, I think. So I have read it in its entirety, which is pretty exciting. As far as sci-fi, lately I have been really enjoying the Expanse series by James Islington. That's probably like my favorite sci-fi thing that I've been reading. And then as far as, let's throw in a YA. I'd say probably my favorite YA fantasy duology is The Strange the Dreamer duology. I'm a big Laini Taylor fan. I liked her first trilogy as well, but I definitely really loved The Strange the Dreamer duology. So maybe that gives you a little bit of an idea of my taste.
Yeah, that's like a nice variety, like very, very much variety there. So I'm gonna show everybody's comments. Hi, thank you for joining.
Oh, well, they changed the way that looks, or did you change something in your settings?
I did. I had for my baby shower done a virtual baby shower and made everything pink because I was doing like a YouTube live stream and I guess it just applied the settings.
That's really cool. I haven't seen that before. I'm gonna shut my door real quick. My dog's barking.
Happy Mother's Day. Yay. Happy Mother's Day weekend to everybody. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms. Wish you all the best with everything. Thank you. That's so nice. Happy Mother's Day weekend. Yay. I've read all 3 books. Oh, okay. Awesome.
Ooh, yay.
You'll have to tell us based on our discussion how the other books are. Hey there, thanks for joining. Haven't finished the book yet, but I'm loving it. Oh, I'm so glad you're loving it. So we're going to start off the discussion spoiler free so that you can hang out, stay around, and then we'll make sure to warn you when we're about to talk spoilers so you can hop off and then rewatch if you want to once you finish it. So starting spoiler free. I start with like the general, what did you think of it? What did you rate it? What were your like overall thoughts? And then we'll get into specifics.
Man, this one was hard because it was a bit of a roller coaster. I feel like my opinions kept changing while I was reading it. In the end, I decided on a 4-star rating, which to me, I really enjoyed it. I just didn't quite love it. There were like a few things that were holding me back from loving it. But there were moments where I loved it more than others. Like there were moments where I was like, I don't really know what I think. And then there were moments where like, this is awesome. So it kind of went up and down throughout the whole book. But overall, I'd say 4 stars, solid read. I definitely want to know what's going to happen next.
Oh my God, we had the exact same thoughts then, because I also on Goodreads rated this a 4. I'm going to say it's very good on my channel. Like I really enjoyed myself, and I was definitely hesitant going into this because of all of the Wheel of Time comparisons, which I'm sure excited you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious to see from like a Wheel of Time fan's perspective, kind of what you thought of those comparisons. But I had the same exact thoughts where it took me a while to get into the book. And then there was this moment, this one scene that I won't say yet until we get to spoilers, that totally sold me. And I was like, oh my God, I'm here for this.
Mark, maybe?
Yes, it was like right around, you might know which scene.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if it's the same moment for both of us.
Yes. But like halfway through, I was sold. I really thought the strengths were like the world building, the magic, even though it was so confusing, was so interesting. I'm like so curious to learn more about it. And then I thought the characters themselves were probably like not the strongest part of the book, but it didn't like take away from the book for me. Like I still enjoyed it overall, despite
I would say it's a pretty plot-driven book. There were a lot of things like happening to the characters, and the characters were reacting to those things. But they were like exciting things that were like, what does that mean? Sort of stuff. But yeah, I would say the characters, like if you're a very character-driven reader, this might not work for you, because I can't say that I love any of the characters. They were all interesting, and like I want to know more about them, but like I don't really like have much of an emotional connection to any of the characters.
Yes, I completely agree. And I actually just talked about this book in my wrap up that went up yesterday, and said like the same thing, where it was like, if you're a character driven reader, I don't know if this is going to do it for you, because I felt the same exact way. The character work didn't take away from the book, but it wasn't the thing that like stood out about the book. The thing that stood out to me was like, I actually really liked the writing style. I thought it was very easy to get through, despite it being confusing. And then I loved like all the world building magic system stuff. That was so cool to me. So
yeah, I was so curious. Like one of the reasons why I suggested this book as our buddy read, because I know you don't like Wheel of Time, but I do. We both wanted to read it, and our reading tastes, they overlap somewhat, but like there's some books that we both like really have the same opinions on, and some books where we're like really opposite on. And I had no idea what this was going to end up being. So
I know. I'm so glad that we think like the same of it. That's awesome. Let's see what other folks. I rated it 4 stars, but it was probably 4.25. Good. I felt like it could have been longer, especially at the end.
Pretty long.
Yeah, it was pretty long too. So that's good that you wanted more on top of what you got. Also 4 for the first one. Characters could have been a little more than just pawns on the board. Okay, and you've read the rest of them, Nicole. So I'm curious what your rating is for the rest of the series. Do they like go up from here? I only had the audiobook, listening to it from work, and it was confusing. Yeah, I could not have listened to this one just on audio.
Yeah, I also listened to the audiobook because I had purchased the audiobook because it's narrated by Michael Kramer, who's like one of my favorites.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You know, he's the narrator of Wheel of Time and Sanderson books and stuff. I really enjoy his narration. And so I did try to do a lot of it on audio, but in the beginning, there were moments where I kept re-listening to parts and I just kept getting confused. So honestly, majority of the book I read and listened at the same time. Towards the end, I was able to kind of just like listen a little bit.
Yeah.
But it definitely is like not ideal to do audiobook only. Like I would recommend having at least a physical or ebook copy to reference, because it's quite confusing, especially at the beginning.
Yes, for sure. I gave it 4 stars. I was like, Jade, loved the beginning, then got confused, ended up being interested in wanting to find out what happens next. There's so much mystery in this book. There's so much left to be answered, and I'm so wanting to know the answers.
Yes. Yeah, I talked about in one of my reading vlogs when I had only read like 25%, I was like really, the first like 10%, I was like, oh my God, this might be a new favorite. And then I started having a little bit of hesitation between like 10 to 15 to like 50%. I was like, I don't know where this is going. It's really confusing. And then it got better from there.
Okay. That's interesting because for me, it was like a little bit of a rough start, but it's hard for me to, I'm definitely one of those readers that I usually never like the beginning of a new fantasy series when I start it. Yeah. It always takes me like at least like 100 to 200 pages to like really get into it. So that was kind of how I felt. Okay, so I'm curious about this. Okay. Adrienne says she's also a big Wheel of Time fan, but did not end up feeling it was all that similar. So as a big Wheel of Time fan, Jade, what did you think of all of the comparisons? I mean, if people are like, why do they keep saying it's compared to Wheel of Time? It literally says on the front cover, loved Wheel of Time, this is your new favorite. So what do you think of those comparisons? Did you find them similar?
I could definitely see where the similarities were coming from. I honestly felt like this book was a mix of a few different really popular series. I would pitch it as a mix of Wheel of Time with, at first I was like feeling, there are definitely elements that reminded me of Terry Goodkind's Sword of Truth series.
Yeah.
And then also I would say Brent Weeks. What's his series name?
The Lightbringer series, or the
a mix of those three, I feel like.
Oh, I can see that.
As the Wheel of Time, like similarities, like the naming of things sounds very similar. I mean, the Wheel of Time naming is very like Lord of the Rings inspired, kind of like fantasy names. But I definitely was seeing that. And then you do have like a cast of, like the three main characters are younger and they're like super naive and on like this quest journey where things are happening to them. They don't understand what's happening and they don't know who to trust. So those kinds of things I do see as having some similarities to Wheel of Time. And there was also this, not to be too spoilery, but like this, you know, mysterious city thing that I thought was very much an inspiration from Wheel of Time as well. So I could see the similarities, but it definitely wasn't like super the same. There were a lot of differences as well.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I mentioned when I was talking about this in my wrap up was, as someone who isn't a huge Wheel of Time fan, but I've only read Eye of the World, so I'm only basing, you know, all of this off of the first book. But as someone who read the first book, I saw those comparisons and I was like, I don't know, I want to pick this up. Like, I still want to give it a shot. And that's kind of, it was a nice surprise that it was still different enough where I was like, oh, that even if Eye of the World doesn't work for you, this could definitely still work for you.
I think the writing style is pretty different. It's not quite as descriptive and it's a lot more fast paced than Wheel of Time. Like Wheel of Time, I think is a lot. So, I mean, I think a lot of the similarities are just like the like typical like old school fantasy tropes and naming things. Like those are really where the similarities come in, I think.
That makes sense. I'm more of a plot-driven reader, and I loved it. Oh, I'm so glad. I basically loved how the author slowly unraveled all the information, made me more interested. Ooh, the final book's amazing. That's good to hear. I'm so excited to continue on with this series.
Me too.
3 stars for me. I didn't feel that much for the characters. Yeah, again, I think the characters were probably the weakest part, but I want to continue. That's good. I listened to the audio on my drive, but mostly read the actual book. Narration was great. I did not know Michael Kramer narrated it. That does make me want to maybe get the audiobooks for the next 2 books. And
the only thing I will say is, maybe you don't care about this, but they are Audible exclusive. So the only
darn.
way, you can listen to the audiobooks is to get them from Audible.
Okay.
Always a little bit of a bummer.
Okay, this makes me very excited, the way the author ties up all the plot points, because there's a lot of things he needs to tie up.
Yeah.
The second one, 5 stars, and the final one, 4. Ooh, okay, yay! This makes me so excited. Hi, Charles. Thanks for joining. I think it was the tone and pacing for me that did not match Wheel of Time.
Agreed.
Okay. Similar tropes, but I cared more about the Wheel of Time characters a lot earlier on. Okay, that's interesting. I like both for different reasons. From what I listened to, it was much better than Eye of the World. Not a big fan, though. Same. Hello. If you want to continue this series, I highly recommend not waiting too long. Yeah.
Okay.
There's some builds on the first book and can get a little confusing if you.
Yeah. I do like to binge series. Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I'm like already like.
Yeah, I don't want to forget anything.
I know. And it's such a bummer because for these book clubs, it's so much fun doing these, but I always start new series. And then if I like them, I'm like, okay, now I have to fit in these huge.
I know you feel like you have a lot of series that you've started, but I have at least 30. A lot of them have been kind of backburnered, so because it's been so long.
Yes.
But yeah, I have a lot of things I'm in the middle of too.
Oh man, that would be tough. You should definitely binge read it. Okay, that's good. The author does have a summary. Thank God. Okay.
I love it when books do that.
I already need a refresher. I mean, yeah, there's a lot that happens. So for spoiler-free thoughts, I feel like that's pretty much all I can say without getting into spoilers. Do you have any other spoiler-free thoughts?
Okay, there's one thing that I want to talk about. I'm not actually going to talk about it because it is a spoiler, but I want to say this is one of those books where something happens around the midpoint, which I kind of hinted at earlier, that it's like one of those things that I think is some people's bookish buzzwords, and I want to mention that it exists, but I can't. Like usually anything with 25% of a book, I feel like is free game, even if it's not in the synopsis, because in the first 25%, you're still really getting into the story, and like that's where like the hook is supposed to happen. But this thing doesn't happen until the like middle of the book, and I want to tell people if you like this thing, you should give this book a try. But like it happens so late in the book that I can't talk about it. That's all I want to say.
I'm gonna say mild spoilers for a buzzword that may entice you. Let's see. Okay, so if you don't want any spoilers at all, then I think this is where we're going to wrap up the spoiler-free discussion. I highly recommend this, even if you don't like Eye of the World, and if you do, I highly recommend this book.
Yeah, if you really like fast-paced, plot-driven books that like have a lot of twists and surprises, and like you're constantly like, oh my God, what does that mean? Or oh my God, I can't believe that just happened. Like constantly, then I think you would enjoy this book. I did say in one of my like reading vlogs, there was a point where I felt like the rug was just constantly being pulled out from under me. And at some point, for some people, that can get a little repetitive and like lose its effect. But then, and it started to kind of be like a little too much, but then I started really liking it again. So I think if you like that kind of stuff, that you should give this book a try.
Okay. Yes, I agree with all of that. So now let's do a mild spoiler. So this is just a buzzword that happens about halfway through the book that we want to mention because it might, if you're like on the fence, should I read this? It might really entice you. Okay, go for it, Jade.
Magical time travel.
Yeah,
I freaking loved that. I was like, wait, what? This is, I mean, I love time travel in general, but especially when it's a magical time travel versus sci-fi time travel, I'm all over it. I was so excited. And this is actually, I think, a little bit another similarity with Wheel of Time. Not time travel, but the exploration of fate. And that kind of ties in with the time travel in this book. There's no time, but exploring fate and, you know, whether you have control, like the chosen ones and the prophecies and how much control you have over that kind of stuff. That is something that is explored in the Wheel of Time series. So I see that similarity as well. But like, you really don't get that until like that scene halfway through the book. But yeah, as soon as we got to like the magical time travel, I was just like, holy crap.
That was exactly where I was like, I am here for this. I don't know where we're going with it, but I'm here for it.
Yes.
That was it. Yes. Okay. So that is your mild spoiler. Now we're really going to get into spoilers. So let me put a banner up. This is going to be now spoiler chat from here on out. So if you haven't read the book, we both recommend it. Give it a try. See if it's for you. But let's talk spoilers now. I'm so excited. Oh, little
doggy. Yeah, she's been scratching at the door for like 10 minutes.
Aw. All right. So, yes, that moment where we get into like that mysterious city, and I don't know how to pronounce it. Maybe the audiobook, if you listen to it, you know how to pronounce it. I'm trying to find.
I can't remember what it was called. If I see it spelled, I might be able to remember.
The old abandoned city.
Yeah.
And I found that scene, just when they got there, I was like, oh, I'm here for this, because I loved like how it almost like read like horror-esque. Like it had like those like echo, like the ghosts showing up and stuff, like the time messing with all of the people and stuff showing up. That was so cool. Yes, Delanis.
Yes. I think the audiobook said Delanis, but
Delanis. Okay. Something like that. Yeah. Yeah. I loved, and like that was where I was like, okay, I'm here for this. Like this is cool.
Did that city remind you of a city in the Eye of the World?
Or I don't remember.
Okay. There is like a city full of mist that's like super dangerous in the, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's in the Eye of the World. Which hopefully that's not too much of a spoiler, but I won't say anything more than that. It's just like there's a similar city thing. Not to do with time travel though. Like I said, that's not in there.
Delanis. Delanis. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes. So like that scene was where it really took off for me. And from there I was totally invested. Like I was here for it. Was that kind of the moment where you really started?
Yeah, I think that maybe not like the city itself, but when he gets transported and like I start to think that it's a time travel thing, that's where I was like, okay, this is interesting. And I think shortly after that is the scene where like future what's the main character's name?
Oh my god!
I know. Davian. When the future Davian comes to visit Asha and like shows up in the room, that I think was my turning point where I was like, oh my god, this is so interesting.
And I have to know how he gets there. Like, I have to know what leads to that. Like, I'm so curious. Yeah. And then all the stuff with Caden, I was not a huge fan of like Caden when we were first introduced to him. To be honest, I was a little confused, like him getting introduced and like starting to travel with them. But then like, I don't know, we started, you know what the moment with Caden was kind of the, a little bit of like romance blossoming between him
and the princess.
What was her name? Jeez. I need to like write down note cards of all
we're both pregnant, so
pregnancy breaking.
Yeah, like I can't remember anything. It starts with a K. Caroline.
Yes. Like that was when I was like, okay, I'm into this Caden thing, and I just have to know the mystery behind him.
Yeah, and I'm honestly a big fan of the I don't remember my past trope. So like I was intrigued by him at first, but it wasn't until we started getting hints that like he was a bad guy that I was like really like interested. I was like, okay, so he doesn't remember who he is, and he might be on the wrong side. Like that's where I was like, you are interesting. And dude, the reveal at the end, I was not expecting that. Like, I mean, I expected he was like a bad guy, but like,
I did not expect that. Did not. Okay, I was
not guess.
The theme of fate and free will was very well explored. Yeah.
It's just something that I really enjoy, and that's one of the reasons why I like the Wheel of Time series, and just like I love books with prophecies and chosen ones because of exploring this.
Yes, I totally agree. The past is so important in the books. Yeah, I'm so curious to explore more of the time travel stuff. I was expecting to get a little bit more of it in this particular book. I was surprised that Davian was able to get back to his present timeline so quickly. But it makes sense because it was starting to like tear him away from his reality in the present timeline. And so he had to get back. But I was expecting a little bit more, but I'm sure we're going to get it in future books. I'm so excited. I was hooked early on, but the time travel really yanked me in. Whole time, him being dead. Yes.
Oh my gosh, yes. When that scene happened, I was like, I'm so confused. What the heck?
Yes. Oh my god.
Like about what really happened whenever that guy saved him on the road the day that he got his mark, Davian got his mark, how it was like really Davian who did all those things. That was pretty mind-blowing. I was like,
know. What? I know. There were so many reveals. I was like, this is fantastic. And I think that's what you were saying, where it's like, you're almost like, it's like whiplash at a certain point.
Because I think in the beginning, it's like whiplash because you don't have quite as much context and it's just like a lot going on.
Yes.
So like when I first started, like the first 10%, there was just like stuff happening, like bang, 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 like when the scene, okay, so after Davian, gets convinced to leave and his friend goes with him, and then Asha wakes up and everybody at the school is dead, I was like, what is happening? Like, I really liked that, and I was really hooked. And then after that, it just kept going, like so many twists and turns and surprises, and I was like, okay, this is getting to be a bit much and kind of disorienting. And then as I started to really like understand the magic better and who people were and starting to make some of those connections, then the twists and turns got more fun again. And then you have like the midpoint with the time travel reveal. And I was like, okay, I'm sold.
Yes. Even the simplest of reveals I thought were so fun. And the earliest one I can remember is when you find out that is like Prince Torian. Torian. And that was so fun, even that reveal. And I was like, I think was my favorite character in this book. I really liked him.
I really like Asha.
She was good too. Yeah. I'm like hooked enough with these characters. I think Davian for me felt I felt a little like I felt with Rand with Davian, where he was like, I think the most like bland of the characters.
And it's a lot of like really naive characters that things are happening to them and they're reacting and like they don't really understand what's going on. And they're just as surprised by all of the like twists and turns as we are. They're like, wait, what just happened? And I think for me, like, I find that really fun. But I think for some people, having such naive characters can be frustrating. I don't really have a good sense of how old they are. Like, they seem to be treated as adults, but they seem so young at the same time.
Yeah, I think folks were talking about that in the Discord chat, and I think that they figured out that like they were like 16 or 17, which I mean, I think, there are definitely like mature teenagers and stuff, like they could very well be that age, and the naivety that you're bringing up makes sense for that age. But that I think that it's going to be interesting to see in the next book how much they grow now that they're kind of looped in on everything happening. And I'm sure we're still going to get more reveals, but they won't be quite as naive moving forward. Yes, Nicole, please do. I will link it in the description box if you find one. That'd be great. Love the forgotten past tropes.
Me too.
Love that. Loved the library in that city. Yes. Where was my favorite? Yay. Yeah. So the other big reveal that I loved was one, Lycanius being the sword.
Yeah, I
And
was thinking it was a person, so
yes,
that's
I was
interesting.
like, okay, what is the Lycanius thing? Um, so that's really interesting that it's the sword. And then I loved finding out why Caden lost his memory and how he purposefully had his memory wiped so that he could gain access to Lycanius. And it was for a purely selfless reason. Like it was for his friends. It's
Yeah.
so cool having a villainous character become a good character because they don't know how to do it. Like Kaden is now like I think after the ending, I'm like most interested in Caden's story. And
Oh, definitely. Because I mean, it was revealed that he is Arcane Devade, right?
yes,
Okay. So I
yes.
want to make sure that I read that right. Because it was definitely like I thought he was working for Arcane Devade, and that was like what he had forgotten. To find out he was actually like the big bad guy, I was like, what? That was crazy. And for it to be revealed at the end, and I really don't understand who the person who like gave Caden Lycanius and like where are they and who are they and why do they need to be like released and like just so many questions there at the end. Like that was I think it was an epilogue too, and I was just like, what?
No, honestly, and that's why I like called this whole book, like if you had asked me at any point in the book, like what specifically is going on? Like who's the enemy? What are we doing? Why? Like how does the magic work? I'd be like, I don't know. I don't know anything. I was so confused the whole time. I don't know like what like where they went to get Lycanius. And I don't think you're supposed to know. And I think that's why I'm like okay with being confused. Because I'm like, I trust that I'll eventually all the pieces will fall into place.
Yeah. And all of these like big twists and like that crazy ending thing, that's what reminds me of the Brent Weeks series, because he does that. He does a lot of like crazy reveals that you're just like, oh my God, what does that mean? And then his endings are always like really crazy and kind of like really surprise you sort of thing. So like that's why I made that comparison. The comparison to Sword of Truth, which I've read like the first like 3 or 4 books like a long time ago. And I don't really plan to continue that series. But in the beginning, there were moments where I felt like it was kind of like really campy and just like because of the naive characters, and some things seemed to happen a little too easily for the characters. And it just like kind of gave me a campy vibe, which is what I associate with Sword of Truth. But also, I believe in Sword of Truth, there's some sort of like magical boundary thing.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't remember too much about it, but I just feel like there was like a magical boundary. So that's like another similarity. And then we've already talked about why I think it's similar to Wheel of Time. So it's like kind of pulling from all these really popular, traditional fantasy series, but like making it its own. And I really liked that.
I totally agree. It in a way, it also reminds me of Malice for that reason.
I haven't read yet.
Oh, you're gonna love
I'm gonna love it. Yeah.
You're gonna love it. But it reminds me of like Malice is super trope heavy, very much like that classic fantasy chosen one story, but it makes it its own in such a cool way. So yes, I love books that rely on old tropes but do something totally fresh with them. I think it's so fun.
I don't mind things that are tropey if they're tropes that I like.
Yeah, exactly.
But I will say the time travel thing in this book, it just came out of nowhere. That was so unexpected, because that's not really a big fantasy trope.
No.
You just don't see it that often. So anytime I see time travel in magic or fantasy books, I love it.
Oh my God, I know. I'm trying to think of one other book that I've read with time travel that's fantasy, and
I've only read one other book, and that it's a YA book, or it's a series. I've only read the first one. It's called The Last Magician by
Okay,
Lisa
yeah.
Maxwell. So it's not like, it doesn't explore like fate and stuff, but there is magical time travel in that book.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah, in terms of like other things that I was pretty confused by, um, magic in this world, it sounds like a lot of the boundaries of the magic are still being explored by the characters, which I think is one reason why I'm confused by it, because especially like the con magic, it's that particular piece of it and the augur magic. I was a little confused on, and
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm supposed to be, but
Yeah.
I think I understood.
I feel okay. So my understanding is that augurs use con, like that is their magic, and that the other kind of magic people use essence, and that augurs can't actually, like, they can't use their own essence, but I don't know if it's just Davian or if it's other augurs too, but they can like utilize essence from around them or something.
Yeah.
And then you have the shadows who like can't use essence anymore, but can use the vessels that have essence in them or something. I don't know. It is very confusing.
It is. It is. Yeah. And I think what we're supposed to understand at this point is just like the basics of like, okay, gifted can use essence, and gifted are the ones who produce essence themselves. They are a source of essence. And then you have the augurs who, and at first I thought it was the gifted could like manifest like physical magic, and the augurs could manifest like more mental magic. That's what I thought the difference was at the beginning. Maybe. Okay, Nicole's saying we're confused about the right things.
Okay, good. That's always good to hear.
Thank God. Okay, because I think like, as long as I understand that, then
right. And I can't figure out if Davian is like something special and is like a mix of gifted and augur. I don't think so, because he can't really produce his own essence as much. I don't know. But yeah, I can't figure out if Davian's like a special case or if he's just like all the other augurs. Uh-oh. Jesse's frozen for me. Oh no. Let me shut my door. I can read y'all's comments, but I can't click on them to put them on the screen.
Am I back?
Yes, you're back. You're on the screen.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
My internet just cut out.
Happens. Oh, can you remove your other self? Okay, there you go.
I was like, why is there a blank screen? Hi everyone, so sorry. I don't even know where we left off.
Yeah. Oh, well, I was saying that I am confused about Davian. I don't know if he's like a special case or if he is the same as other augurs. Because that one adult guy that starts with a T that was with them for a long time, the one that saves Davian, he seems to think that Davian is someone special.
Right.
So, I don't know.
I don't know. And maybe that's where we find out, like in the time travel scenes that we're going to get in the future, why he's so different.
Right. I mean, I'm thinking that Davian is like the chosen one of the story. Does that mean that at the end of the book, him and Caden are going to be enemies? But like Caden's like maybe trying to switch sides.
I know. I really like Caden, so I'm like, no, I don't want him to be a big bad
guy. But if he gets all his memories back, he will change his mind about who he wants to be and like go back to being his old self. I don't know.
I'm so curious. I can't wait to find out.
Okay, but I have a theory or like
Okay.
an idea that I want to ask you about. So at the end, we find out that Caden is Arcane Devade. And there was this whole like trial thing, basically, that he had to like prove himself to get this sword, right?
Right.
And that reminded me a lot of that story that Davian found in the book that he got from the magical library, where he was like, I'm looking for information on Arcane Devade. And he read through the whole thing and was like, I don't really understand it. But there was like one story that they went really in depth on. And it was that king who like could live for a really long time. And he tried to like get his friend, like basically he was trying to prove his worth by bringing people who would like trust him even when the other guy like offered really good things. And he kept failing. Is that Arcane? Is that him? Is that Caden? And this is somehow, I think they're somehow related, but I don't know.
Maybe. And I loved that story. Typically, I'm not like a huge fan of like stories within stories.
Yeah.
I was like really invested in that story.
I know. I was so sad when his wife died and he like didn't give her a chance. And she was like, I would have listened to you. That was really sad.
That was
but
so
yeah, I
sad.
feel like that story is supposed to be important because they like told us the whole story.
Yes.
And it kind of reminded me of like Caden trying to pass this, test or whatever at the end, but I don't understand how they're connected. Like, and they said that Caden had been alive for a really long time. So like, is he the same person as that person in the story? I don't know.
That's a really good theory. I really like that theory. I like these people saying they would root for Caden, even if him and Davian were. I mean, honestly, at this point, I would too.
Caden's a much more interesting character for sure.
Yes, for sure. The other thing that I really liked about this book was the whole idea of having to stick to like what were they called? The laws of like the gifted.
The tenets.
The tenets. Yes. And having like the one person be able to change them, and that like ability to change the tenets is kind of passed down in the family. I thought that was so cool. And I loved the scene where Whir finally got to change the tenets and had to rely on Davian to do so. Because I was like on the edge of my seat, like, is Davian going to screw this up right now?
Right. But that reminds me of another scene or another reveal that I was like, what the heck? So when Weir's dad, when he like steps in front of and like saves his life and then is like, let me die because I want you to change the tenets. I cried at that moment. I was like, oh no, that's so sad. And then you find out that augur had been controlling him the whole time.
It was Aaron the whole time.
And Asha is like, you can never tell Weir this. And I was like, yeah, don't tell him that. Like, oh my gosh, that was reveal was insane. And I was
so awesome.
Oh my God.
I loved it. Oh my God. Like our discussion is making me like this even more because I'm like so excited about these reveals. So, I'm like going to have to go buy the second book right away.
Dude, finding out that the dad, like, because Weir was like, oh yeah, my dad changed. He, loved me so much that like he was okay with it and sent me to the school to protect me. And he was working with Asha the whole book to like try and help the augurs and the gifted. And to find out it was all a lie, I was like, what?
Well, then it made sense, like his whole death scene. Because at first I was a little confused. I was like, why is he like, don't listen to what I say past a certain point, like just kill me, like don't don't
that kind of threw me off too. I mean, I wasn't confused at first when he stepped in front of him and like was like, let me die because you need to change the tenets. Like, all of that makes sense. And then like it got kind of weird, and then like you have that scene later and you're just like, oh my God, it makes so much sense.
I know. Crazy. I loved that. So now it's like now that they introduced that twist, like you could technically, like anyone could be
controlled. Well, and we think that the king was being controlled, but we don't know by who. And then somehow
Right.
it seems like he stopped being controlled when Weir changed the tenets. But like, why? Like, tenets don't, the gifted is separate from like, excuse me, the gifted and the tenants you would think is separate from like augurs, and augurs are the ones who would be controlling him. And it's just like, what?
Yes. Okay, Nicole, you're gonna go make me start the second book right away, aren't you?
Seriously.
Can't trust anything in these books. Now that they introduce that twist, you can't. You can't.
Yeah. All the things that happened at the end of the book made me want to give it 5 stars, but just because the first half of the book I was like really unsure of my feelings.
Yeah.
Couldn't. So like it's definitely a higher 4, like maybe a 4.5 that I'm rounding down to 4. But I definitely see 5-star potential in the rest of the books. And there were just so many twists and turns, and I really loved the ending. But I just struggled with the beginning, so I couldn't quite give it a 5-star for me.
Yeah, that's how I felt. And like, honestly, I still feel so confused. Like, I'm still like, why is the enemy the enemy? Like, why are we doing what we're doing? And maybe I'm supposed to be confused, and that's the whole point.
Yeah.
But I like that there was enough revealed in this book where you're like, okay, I got some answers, but I still have so many questions.
Yeah, because we still don't really understand who Arcane Devade is.
Right.
What is this boundary? Why did he create it? Yes. And like, who are these soldiers that are like coming? Like, we still don't understand. And oh my gosh, okay, so you have like the soldiers in the armor. That thing when the group, like Weir and the guy and Caden, and they met the refugees, and then all of a sudden they use gifted magic, and they turned into like these crazy murderers, and they're like actually dead people that have been controlled. Yes. I was like, what is happening?
Yes, that's insane. You can't trust anyone because the echoes now.
Yeah, the echoes, that's what they're called. Yeah.
Yeah, so now it's like, okay, not can you have augurs controlling people, and it's not actually them at all making the decisions, but then you also have people who can just act like themselves but are actually like a part of the Boundaries army.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Well, and then at the big battle at the end, when all of a sudden some of the soldiers, like right before the soldiers like turned on them, and that Weir recognized that they were echoes. It happened a couple times, the foreshadowing. They kept referencing that the soldiers were acting weird and being like lazy and like disappearing for days, and they brought it up at least twice, and I was like, okay, there's something to this, but I don't know. And then whenever they're having the big battle and all of a sudden the soldiers start attacking themselves or whatever, I was like, oh my god, that's what's happening. It makes so much sense. So that was like a really fun reveal too.
So fun. You know, it's funny that you bring this up because I had the opposite experience with Ruin of Kings, where that book also was super ambitious with all these different elements it was trying to introduce. And it was like you had reincarnation, you had people controlling other people. It was like at a certain point, it felt like no character was actually who they said they were. And there are similarities in this one. And it's interesting that I really disliked Ruin of Kings, but I really enjoyed this one. And I'm like, why is that? Like, what was the difference?
Isn't it so interesting how books can have like similar things, but you can have totally different reactions to them? Yes. So I've been on the fence about reading Ruin of Kings because you and Elle both were like, maybe not, but like hearing this makes me want to give it a try because maybe I'll feel differently about it.
Right. I mean, because like that's the thing. Like I thought it was because of all of these different elements that it was trying to throw at you, and it was like just too much. It was trying to accomplish too much. But then this book does the same thing, and I love it. So I'm like, I don't know.
And it's not even that you like the characters, because sometimes I feel like the characters can really save a book.
Yes,
that's not necessarily the case in this case. So who knows?
Right. And then yes, you love Ruin of Kings more. How funny. So it's so
Reading
weird.
is so subjective, and I love it.
It's
This
so
is why, like,
subjective.
even if a bunch of people that I trust don't love a book, sometimes I still want to give it a try because, like, maybe I'll feel different.
Yes. I mean, totally agree. That's such a good point. No. I'm trying to think of like the other big things that I wanted to, but those were like the scenes we've talked about were like the standout ones in
Yeah.
my mind.
Okay, so I have another one. Okay, so in the beginning, when the guy whose name starts with an I, like Ilseth something.
Yes, it's the one who sends him on the
Mhm.
quest. Okay.
When he turns Asha into a shadow, I was like, what? Like that was crazy because like he like lies about it.
Yes.
And then later Asha finds out that he lied about it. So like all of that was really interesting. And then when Davian goes to interview him when he's in the cell and wants to like unlock his memories and he like stabs him in the leg so he can get the memory. Yeah. That was really interesting. And then he like basically is catatonic after that. I was like, oh shit, Damien, like, or Damien, you probably shouldn't have done that. Like, that was kind of crazy. That was a shocking moment because I didn't think that he was gonna like brain damage him, you know, like I thought that was fine. And then he was like brain damaged. And I'm like, dude, that guy had so many secrets. I want to know more about the things that he knows and why he did the thing. Like, who is he working for? I don't know.
Right. Now that you're bringing that up, you know what I just noticed that's really interesting is we're led to believe that like Davian kind of has this chosen one aspect going on a little bit, but it's really Caden that is kind of introduced at the very end as more of the chosen one, the anti-chosen.
I mean, maybe he's also like the enemy, but like the series is called the Lycanius trilogy, so obviously the sword is important, and Caden has the sword, and Caden uses the sword to like save everybody at the end. Like, I just don't know what's happening.
Yeah. But then you read this book and Caden, okay, so Caden's supposed to be the big baddie, but he has more of like this redemption arc going in this book at least. And you're like, but he's kind of like the good one. And then you have Davian, who's like supposed to be the good one and is like super pure at the beginning of this book, but then kind of starts to descend a little bit. Are they gonna like switch roles like by the end?
I mean, at this point they're still friends too, so like that's why I brought up earlier, like, are they gonna end up being enemies at the end of this? Like that friends like enemies? Yeah,
going down the dark path and that would be so cool. I'm here for it. If that's where this is going, I'm here for it.
Yeah. And Asha is so interesting to me. Okay, so the scene where Davian time travels, like future Davian time travels to visit her, doesn't he say he sentences her to death for helping the shadows? Am I remembering? I feel like he said that, and I was like, what?
Wait, I don't remember. If anyone remembers,
am I making that up? Does anybody else remember that?
I believe you. How could I forget?
I mean, I could be misunderstanding what he said in that scene because obviously it was confusing, and we were like, wait, Davian, like, I thought it was cool that that's how she knew Davian was still alive, was because like his future self came. But yeah, I feel like he said that he sentenced her to death, and I was like, what?
Oh my goodness,
I'm wrong.
I might have to try to like go find that and reread that scene because that's probably a super important scene.
Probably,
want to make sure you remember.
Yeah, and understand.
Yeah, so I feel like
I'm thinking maybe I'm wrong because nobody's like chiming in to say that happened.
That would make me so sad for Asha. If they change roles and Davian like goes down the dark path.
Yeah, because there's like a little bit of like a romance between them too.
Yes. I'm here for the romance between Caden and Kara.
Yeah.
That was really interesting. I really liked Kara's character. Some of the side characters I thought stood out quite a bit. I think I liked Kara more than I liked Asha, to be honest, in this book. Because I really liked how you could tell she was so guarded and so like just protecting herself from any sort of emotional connection to people. And then Kaden reveals that he's like, has no ill intentions or anything like that. She's like, oh, well, let me just be myself. And it was a quick switch because you could tell she was like so desperate for somebody to connect with.
Right. And that scene where like he saved her life, like that totally changed her opinion of it. Like I like that. Is it Aelric, I think? Like the guy who's like totally in love with her. Like, I don't feel that way. He's just a friend. I like that she wasn't like into him, even though he seems like she should be into him, and like he wasn't.
Yes.
And then the scene where Kaden like goes to try and find out more, and it's a trap, and then the princess had followed him, and he has to save her. Like that, I was like, oh my god, what's happening? That was another like big scene where I was just like, so much action happens like constantly. Things are not what you think they're gonna be. Yeah,
I love it. I love it. Ooh, I would say Kaden is the main character. And see, I would not have said that for this book, but I feel like he's just going, he's like, now, after that reveal at the end.
Because like he doesn't show up until like, I don't know, like 25% into the book, I feel like.
Yeah, and then he was so quiet most of the time. And because he, you know, you don't know who he is. No one knows who he is. He doesn't know who he is.
The scene where he like, at least remembers what he did, like killing all those people. That was so sad because he didn't want to believe that he did that.
I know, that was so sad. Oh my god. And it showed how like bad he was. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Okay, so he does say that apparently.
But it felt like he was repeating something someone else was saying to him.
Okay, we've got to go reread that scene now. I'm like so curious.
Yeah.
That
thing was so crazy.
That's true. He was a big part of the book summary.
I didn't read the book summary.
Yeah, I didn't even like read the book summary until after after I had finished, and I was like, "How did they sum this up?" Because it's so expansive. But he is a big part of the book summary, so he is. I mean, he's definitely a main character. Like, no doubt about it. I'm so excited to continue on. I'm curious if our theories pan out the way we think
we should try to buddy read the rest of the series.
That would be so fun. Yes, I definitely want to prioritize getting to it soon because, like folks were saying in the chat, this is so much going on that I feel like if I wait too long, I'm going to forget.
Yeah,
so I need to read it soon, but
it's so funny because like in my last reading vlog that I posted, I said that like I started out really liking it, and then I was kind of like, I don't know, like it's kind of campy, it's a little too twisty turny, I'm not sure what I'm gonna think. But then that was when I was only 25% into it. So then like the rest of the 50% on, I just like loved it so much. And then I had mixed feelings at the end. I was like, how do I rate this? Because it wasn't like perfect because obviously I struggled in the beginning, but it just there was a lot of things, and I liked. So one of the things that I like about the Brent Weeks books is how twisty-turny and surprising it is. But there's all that like male gaze, misogyny kind of stuff that really I struggle with in those books. And this was so pure, which I think kind of relates back to the Wheel of Time thing, because Wheel of Time is very like PG-13, and I feel like this is too, and that's how I prefer my books anyways. So I had a lot of things that I really loved about it.
I agree. I mean, after chatting today, like I thought that this was like easily like very good, 4-star. I'm like, should I bump up my rating? Because I'm obviously like super into it.
I know, me too. I feel the same way. It's hard because it's not like a perfect book, but there's just so much fun stuff.
Yes, I'm so excited. And I feel like it's only going to get better from here because now that I'm invested.
It sounds like people are saying that it just gets better. So I'm excited for it.
All right. Well, we'll have to figure out when we're going to buddy read and maybe just, try to buddy read them soon because I'm super into it.
Yeah.
Yay! Okay, well, I don't have really anything else. I think we hit like every scene I wanted to. Yes. Okay, people are in for the buddy read. Yay! But we'll have to like try to do a Discord buddy read or something, like open up a channel. Because this was so much fun. And it's fun to talk about it with people because it's so twisty turny.
Right.
So.
Well, and this time I purposely like avoided the Discord and I avoided like talking to you about it because we were going to do the live stream.
Yes.
But I think for the sequels, I'll definitely like be more active so we can talk about it as we go instead of avoiding talking about it.
For sure. Yes. I know. I always feel like I have to wait until the live shows to like talk with the guest hosts about the book because like I kind of want to, I don't know, I want the reveal to be
surprising. Yeah.
Show. Yeah. So, okay, cool. We'll make that the plan. We'll try to find a time to buddy read the next couple books. Yay! I'm so excited that you enjoyed it too. This is such a good pick for this month. I'm so glad.
It worked out really well.
Yes. So, well, thank you so much for joining for the month of April, Jade.
Thanks for having me.
Fun. Thank you all who participated and ended up enjoying it. I'm so glad that so many of you enjoyed it. And even if you didn't enjoy it, thank you for joining us anyway. Hopefully, you know, we all continue on with the series and enjoy it. And then next month, or I guess this month, because it's May already, Alan has now officially taken over shelf space because my baby is due at the end of this month, which is wild. And they are reading The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne, which I'm super excited for. And the guest host is Abby Salter. So I'll include all that information down below. So live shows will now be on Alan's channel moving forward. And I'm super excited. He's gonna make it fun. So
yeah, he's always he's so like excitable and animated. So and I am planning to read The Shadow of the Gods, even though I haven't read Malice yet. I think I might start with that one. So I'm excited for it.
A lot of people are starting with Shadow of the Gods, and I'm really curious to read that one because I love Malice. You would love Malice. You got to read Malice.
I know. Elle and I have to find a time to buddy read it.
Yes. Oh, I can't wait to see what you guys think of it. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining. Have a great rest of your Mother's Day weekend. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. And I will talk to y'all later.
Bye, guys.
Bye.